Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Nice, Myrtle Beach. And we'll get started at the top of the hour, so I'll just give it a couple more minutes for folks to join on it. See some more folks join, so go ahead and throw in the chat where you're tuning in from. Let's see how far the reach we got with this one is. And once again, for anyone who just joined us and missed, I'm joining in from sunny California, Northern California, Sacramento area. Okay, got some Oklahoma City, Arizona, Florida. I love it. We're coming from all over. Okay, Burbank, not too far away from me. We'll get started in one more minute here. All right, and we've reached the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and jump into it. So hello and welcome to the Fall into Learning Professional Development Series. Welcome to the Project Economy, hosted by Dr. Raj Parikh. Today we'll examine the project management methodologies that can actualize the goals that you have in mind for your respective organizations. Over the last 25 years, Dr. Raj Parikh has worked with some of the biggest companies on the Fortune 500 list, including Verizon, AT&T, Unisys, Cable and Wireless, and Fidelity. At these companies, he held mostly technical positions, dealing with systems, networks, telephony, security, call centers, disaster recovery, consulting, professional service, project management, pre-sales engineering, product design, mergers and acquisitions. His teaching background includes over 20 years of on-ground and online experience, both at the corporate and university levels in North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. At these organizations, his roles varied from a mentor to lead faculty and course designer to the program chair. Dr. Parikh obtained his bachelor's from DeVry University in technical management, a master's from the Keller Graduate School of Management and Project Management, and a doctorate from the Walden University in Information Systems Management. Outside of formal education, he has several vendor certifications, including Cisco, Microsoft, Novel, CompTIA, ITIL, and Project Management Institute. My name is Chris Poget, and though my credentials are not as long, I'm an education partnership representative with the University of Arizona Global Campus. Be sure to stick around after the presentation for some quick information about UAGC and attending the Global Campus. I'll now hand the floor over to Dr. Parikh so that we can take a deeper dive into understanding the project economy.
All right, thank you, Chris. Thank you for getting us started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Project Economy. As Chris mentioned, my name is Raj Parikh. I'm a core faculty member for UAGC's undergraduate degree program for project management. I've been with the UAGC since 2016, but I've been involved in the field of project management since early 2000. As Chris already mentioned, I worked with, fortunate enough to work with a lot of the IT-related projects, anywhere from relocating call centers to migrating data centers and upgrading IT systems to rolling out new enterprise applications. Having said that, today I want to share with you some context about how we are changing our approach to work. For some of you, this change may be very visible, and for others, this may be a very slow and a silent change that may continue to reshape your typical workday without even your knowledge. So let's get started. I want to start with a Hollywood square here, set up here, and ask you a question. What's the one thing that's common that you see on the screen here? There are 9 squares here. I'll give you a few seconds to process this and see if you can find a common theme here. And feel free to go ahead and use the chat to answer those questions. One common thread. I'm going to pull up my chat here. All right, now I'm not able to see the chat here, guys. So I'm just gonna assume that you already answered the question. So yeah, so if you haven't figured this out, the common thread here is the project, right? They all, each of these square represent a project. Now, it's critical to note that project is not the same as an operation. And again, if you take a look at this, I want to spend a little some time here on this slide as well. So, creation of iPhone 14 or discovery of the COVID-19 vaccination, or planning a wedding, or even pursuing a college degree, or even this webinar, right? I mean, leading up to this, this is also what consider a project. And again, we'll define that in a second. So it's critical to understand the project is not the same as an operation. Many people still think those two terms are identical. They may use those two terms interchangeably, but that's not true. So let's first start at the bottom and define and differentiate between these two terms called project and operation. So what you see on the left-hand side is the operation. What on the right-hand side is the process, or the steps for completing a project. Now, operation is defined as a set of activities that takes place forever. For example, printing a newspaper, or running a school bus schedule, or running a call center. Now, things that happen inside your local Walmart on a day-to-day basis, things like sweeping the floor, stocking the shelf, right? These things happens every single day, and they will continue to happen as long as the company is in operation. Project, on the other side, it's a unique in a nature because it has a start date, it has a definite end date, And then at the end of your project, you have a sort of product, a service, or a process, right? Which you don't get that with the operation. So now when you see this side by side, you clearly understand that there are a very clear delineation between operation and a project. Now that you know the difference between the two, the operation and the project, it is easier to understand that projects are increasingly driving both the short-term performance and also the long-term creation of value through more frequent organizational transformation, faster development of the new products, and even quicker adoptions of technologies. Now, this is a global phenomenon, right? More specifically, projects are taking place in every company, in every industry, in every country. So no matter where you end up, you're going to have either you're going to be a part of a project team or you're going to be actually managing a project. So project is here to stay, and project is really taking over in terms of how we review our workday every day. All right. I also want to talk about this as project is taking more dominant space here in the workplace, what's happening behind the scene. So as the widespread adoption of project, you can see a lot of things are changing. Things are in terms of organizational structures are changing. The organizational culture is changing. Even employees' identities are changing. Right now, you may have heard that a lot of these companies have ditched the title for the employees, right? You just basically can say, John Smith, and you say sales, right? And there's no title. You simply have the department or the functions that individual operate on. A lot of companies have adopted that. So now what's happening with dominance of project work taking over, these companies have adopted project-based work culture where employees are also identified with their contribution to a given project. There are two examples that I was able to locate here during my research. One is inside the US, one is outside. And again, they're listed here. MR is one of the biggest property developer in Middle East. And Richards Group is the leading ad agency in the US. They've ditched the titles for the employees, and employees are now simply identified by the types of projects they worked on, the roles they've played, and that is their identity. Now, having said that, this is not very easy, right? Because for a large organization, this can create a lot of confusion. For large companies, when you eliminate job titles, it can bring a sort of a uncertainty to a point and even unpredictability to the workforce. So people can get confused as to, what do you do here? What is your job role? And especially for HR as well, it's also very difficult for them to manage, especially a large workforce. So yes, there's a challenge that we are dealing with right now. But the point here is that the shift has already started. A lot of these companies have moved towards reshape their culture, their values, their strategic identity based on the projects. All right, so having said that, there are some points to think about when you move towards a project first organization, right? Project understand that provides meaningful work. Not that operation doesn't, but again, if you're working with operation, working on a factory floor, if you're working on a call center, it's pretty much the same work every day, day in, day out. A project is different. Project, you get to work on a project. Once the project is over, you finish it off, you move on to the second project. And again, you're growing, you're learning, you're touching many aspects of the organization, both internal and external. Projects can be motivating and inspiring, right? I mean, because you accomplish something. I can imagine iPhone 14 was just released. I can't help think about that. Whether it's a success or not, at least the people who are part of that team, they would have some sort of accomplishment that they completed, the iPhone 14 rollout. Again, they're proud of the accomplishment and they gain experience. That's very important because again, it could be a success or a failure, right? I mean, you can have a product launch that had just complete disaster. But again, even because you're a part of the project, you can actually go back and review what has happened, what contributed to the success, or what caused the failure. You learn from that, and then you come back again stronger, the next go around for the next project. So project is also allowing employees' mindset to be changing as well. So I'm hoping that you guys are seeing the different pieces that's affecting how the projects are changing and affecting the mindset for the employees and the culture as a whole. Now, when you are running a project, there is more than one way to execute these projects, right? This particular slide is this can literally turn into maybe a 3-week course on a given university, but I'm going to try to summarize this in the next 5 minutes here or so. So what you see here is these are the names of some of these methodologies. Maybe many of you have heard of these before. Maybe some of you are new to this. And this is just a sample. This is not even a complete list, right? And imagine you're trying to design a process in your organization, and it could be an employee onboarding process, right? I mean, we all know, generally speaking, what is the employee onboarding process looks like. You have a employee submits the resume, goes through the HR does a first screening, it goes to the hiring manager, so on and so forth, right? And the employee gets hired, the offer letter goes out. There's a little process that goes through, but every organization has a little different, right? Some companies would have they will drop ship the laptop from their suppliers, or some company will provide them, they will ask them to use their laptop and then provide them a virtual environment. There's little nuances to all of them. And that's exactly what this happens here within a project management. Not every company runs the project exact same way also. And that makes it a very interesting setup as well. And this nuances also differentiates the degree of success when these companies are trying to execute them. So let's go through a couple of these right here. So I'm going to start with the first one called the waterfall. Waterfall is the most popular the framework that's out there. Probably the oldest one as well. It's also known as the software development lifecycle. SDLC is the acronym here. And the way it works is like a waterfall. So it goes into a linear process. So but what happens is when you want to work on a project, you start with gathering requirements. What is the requirements for this project? Then we do the analysis. Once the analysis is complete, then we move into the design phase. We design the systems on the paper. Then we start the coding. Once the coding is done, then we do the testing. Once the testing is done, we then operationalize the application or the software, or the system, whatever that is. And you can see it happens in that sequence. And it cannot jump. It has to go through those steps, and that's why it's called the waterfall. Now, waterfall is one way to do this here. The other one is called the agile. Now, agile is also a very popular and very common project management methodology, and especially with the IT projects here. Now, agile is more of an approach or a mindset than the methodology, and it can help your team deliver value to your customer really faster, right? So I always give example in my classroom differentiating between a waterfall and an agile. If you order a plane from Boeing, Boeing will say, sure, we'll deliver the plane to you. We'll see you in 2 years, right? So that's typically how Boeing would do the process and then deliver the airplane to the airline. But if your HR department contacts you and say, hey, if you want to create a little employee, a website, internal website, you don't want to say we'll see you in 6 months, right? You want to say, okay, well, no, we can do something here. It's an internal project. It's very quick. Tell you what, today's Wednesday, or we can go back and how about Friday at 10 o'clock? I'll show you what I have in mind, and then maybe you can tell me, right? So it's a very quick turnaround. Within 2 days, I'll have a little wireframe set up, some kind of a rough layout for the HR manager, and the HR manager will say, oh yeah, this is good, or they'll say, no, change this. The point is, I'll get my feedback on Friday, which is very quick, right? And you can turn around. So what we're doing within Agile is we're moving really fast. We are dropping the documentation. We are doing, we are upping the customer interaction and try to, get as much face time as possibly from them, and then giving them the system that they need in a very fast turnaround. Right? So that's the Agile, and now we can see why this is very popular within the IT world. The basis for Agile obviously is that it's a collaborative, it's very fast, it's effective, and it is data backed, right? And I'm showing you what I have. And then finally, we value individuals over the processes, right? We believe in that collaboration part. So Agile framework can be used by just about anybody in the team. But again, the real trick is to decide, which methodology within the Agile we can use. All right, let's switch over to Kanban. So it's pronounced as either a Kanban or a Kanban based on how you want to pronounce it. but it's also a type of agile methodology. And a Kanban is all about implementing a philosophy that continuous improvement, right? And what we do is we pull the tasks from the list of tasks that we have to do for a project, and then we follow them through. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you may have a typical to-do list. I'm going to say you have a 30 tasks in your to-do list, and you pull 10 of them to work on this week. So Monday, you pulled out 10 tasks, from your master to-do list, which is the 30 items. You pull down, 10 items that you're going to work on this week. So Monday, you start with all 10. Tuesday, you may have finished 2. You are working on 5, and then that's 7. And then you're waiting to get feedback from other people on those 3 other tasks. So now, you are like in the different stages for those 10 tasks that that you're working on. And then hopefully, eventually, the idea is to finish everything by Friday, right? Mark them all complete. Now that may or may not happen. The same thing is happening here within the Kanban. The Kanban is made up of what they call boards. It provides that visual project management, which helps your team visualize where the project tasks are in the execution cycle. And if you've used any software like Trello or ClickUp or Microsoft Planner, they are based on Kanban methodology. Okay, moving on to XP. XP stands for Extreme Programming. Now, XP is another agile framework, right? So you can see there's lots of subset of agile as well. Framework that's designed to produce higher quality software as well as higher quality of life for the development team. As you can see, every methodology touches on a different aspects of the work, if you will. Now, the XP is successful because it focuses on customer satisfaction, right? What we do when we use XP model, the extreme programming model, we recommend taking the best practice that have worked well in the past, and we take them to even the next extra level, the extreme level, if you will. So what extreme programming allows is the developers to respond confidently to changing customer requirements, even very late in the life cycle, right? That's one thing that we frown upon. It's like, okay, once you decide on what you want to work on, don't change your requirement. But sometimes you just can't help it. Sometimes there's a legal requirement that comes in. Sometimes there's competition that's forcing you to change your strategy midway through the project execution. So something like XP can help you do a quick turnaround and recalculate all of your parameters, and then change the course of your project execution. All right, critical path method. Critical path method is a technique that allows you to identify tasks that are necessary for project completion. Now, the definition of it, you can see the word is embedded right there, critical path. So the critical path in a project management is the longest sequence of activities, I guess you can say, that has to be finished on time in order for the entire project to complete. That means that if you miss anything, if you delay any task that is on a critical path, guaranteed your project will be delivered late, right? So we always, as a project manager, we always keep an eye on all the tasks are on critical path method. So CPM, critical path method, provides visibility into your project's progress and allows you to monitor the tasks and their completion time. And we really make sure nothing ever goes wrong. There's no slippage on any of the tasks that are on critical path method. All right, what's left? PRINCE. Okay, PRINCE stands for Project in Controlled Environment. So PR, then IN, and then C, the E, right? So I don't know how, this is an interesting acronym. So PRINCE of Projects in Controlled Environment. And we started with the PRINCE, and then now the PRINCE was the first framework was designed. It was focused on just IT. And then in late 90s, the organizations got together, the governing body got together and said, you know what, this is not just for IT. Anybody can use this, or any industry. And then now they change it to PRINCE 2. But again, so it basically signifies that it's no longer just an IT-driven project methodology. Anyone can use this. So PRINCE 2 is a good beginner methodology. So if your team has never used any sort of project management methodology before, PRINCE 2 is a good place to start. And because there is it has a simple yet very defined process, your team has a very, they can take a clear steps to follow, even like I said, if they never implemented any of the project management processes before. So for somebody who's starting out brand new, Prince may be a great way to get started for your projects. And then we're left with Lean. Now, Lean project management is the agile methodology that increases customer value by eliminating waste from each of the project phase. I think we have heard this term before. This goes back to Toyota, right? Because they are one of the first one. They incorporated the concept of Lean into the manufacturing process, right? And the Toyota production system. And it was so powerful that even the TPS, Toyota Production System, is still used today in manufacturing. That enhances the interaction between suppliers and customers, and more importantly, eliminates the waste, right? So there are lots of methodology in here, and I can't finish this without mentioning Dr. Edward Deming. You remember him. Again, he was a contributing member of creating that framework for Toyota. And the process that he used was the PDCA, which is a plan, do, check, and act, right? So that those processes are in place. Last one, Six Sigma. So again, another one is the business methodology that is focused on improving processes, reducing waste and errors, and increasing customer satisfaction throughout the organization. And I think Six Sigma, even if you look at every decade, it seems like Six Sigma is gaining more and more popularity just because the organizations are trying to make sure that they operate in a very lean fashion. They make sure they reduce the number of defects, the errors, right? And then they continue to improve the decision-making process, communication and collaboration, and overall customer satisfaction, right? That's one of the reasons why when there's a recall in any of the automobile, any of the brand, it's a big blow to them, right? Because there's a lot of cost associated with it. Their stock price goes down. And more importantly, everybody gets to see that this is bad. I'm not sure. Can I trust this, automobile maker, because they're getting constant recalls and things like that. So yeah, eventually you lose your market share as well. So again, focus is back on Six Sigma. So you can also use that for your project management. Okay. All right. So one last thing before we leave the slide: agile and traditional project management, aren't at war with each other. It sounds like maybe there are two different things. They're not. Right? In today's change-driven world, companies can't just rely on one methodology. There's no one, one trick that does for all of their projects, because the projects can vary. Projects can vary by the scope, the type, the industry, the country, right? So they really need to create a toolbox, right? Toolbox that approaches that incorporates all of these methodologies in here. And I've seen many organizations, they really create their own hybrid methodology to manage their projects, and they end up doing really, really well. All right, so this was the bulk of the conversation I wanted to spend here on project management methodology. This kind of gives you an idea as to how you go about doing this. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, which is, all right, I understand projects, I get it. This sounds good. How do I move forward? How do I take my existing setup that I have right now, and how do I transform into a projectized organization, right? So there are a couple of steps you can go through this. So when you have a conventional structure, right? You have a typical setup where you have the CEO at the top, and you have departments underneath that. You have a typical, HR, IT, marketing, sales. In this type of organization, project manager, it could be just another, just a standalone employee underneath IT, or it could be a contractor, really. And generally, project manager is reporting to the project sponsor. Project sponsor is the individual within the company who's taking on the initiative to start the project. Now, the project manager, in this case, in the typical organization, acts as a facilitator, right, on a project. But the project manager really doesn't have a control or the authority over things like budget or the resources or the key elements of the project. I know I was part of a project, and when I brought up risk management, they said, "Don't worry about it. Nothing's gonna go wrong. Just continue on." Right. So, and I said, "Okay," but so there are a lot of things like that can happen when you're working for just a traditional organization. Now, when you move towards a projectized organization, what happens is that the majority of the organization's resources are utilized for project activities. And the project is generally completed for an external customer. Project managers in this projectized organization have almost full control and the authority over the resources, budgets, activities, and almost every aspect of the project. In this environment, project managers also play a key role and have a access to all the project schedulers, developers, subject matter experts, a lot of analysts, change management activities, and other employees. And that contributes to a higher level of success when we are looking at the project execution. So the concept behind the projectization is that all activities should fit within a project that requires both human and organizational strength, right? And then that's what you need as an organizational goal. So that's the strategy. You kind of start from that. Then comes the skill part, right? Projects are, again, only as good as the people who run them. I think there's no surprise there. So in a project-driven world, you need to have various set of skills. You need a project management skills, right? And obviously these individuals are, running the actual project. You also need skills of product development and a subject matter expert, right? Whatever the area that you're in. Again, they need to develop a reasonably proficient understanding of the technology features, products, services, capabilities of the particular project. You also need a strategy and a business acumen, right? You need that as well, because again, those are the individuals who understand organization's culture, their strategy. They also understand the competitive landscape. So that's also very important. And then finally, leadership and change management skills. Right, so you also need those set of skills. So these set of skills needs to be clearly defined, articulated, and also separated out within the environment. So that's very important. Structure, we already talked about the structure, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it. But again, that's functional structure versus the projectized structure. Then we move over to, so again, if you have the traditional structure, you need to really make an effort, right? The idea is to have the chief project officer, if you want to call it, or someone with that level of title sits at the at the board level, right? So this way you have a complete oversight right from the top down as to what's happening within that environment. So unless you have those types of environment, you don't have a projectized environment. Just keep that in mind. Staffing. When you begin your project, assign the obligations and role to each of the team member. It's very important. Many companies have employees database, and that database contains the skills and certification inventory. So I know I've been part of many companies and many projects where I would go up to HR and HR would give me access to this database, and I can look up individuals that would be a good fit for my environment. It could be a time zone fit. It could be the certification. It could be the resources. Somebody may be having, maybe really smart and a perfect fit, but they may be already stretched too thin. So I really can't use those individuals. But try to find those individuals. Using the staffing that you can onboard for your project is very important, right? So you need to go through that and select the right resources. With the duties and the functions already listed, members now know how to participate in the project and what work that needs to be produced, right? What is that we are trying to do as the project deliverables. And again, roles can also, you can change over time. And again, some team members might gain additional responsibilities. Some folks can go in and out. But the point is, you're creating this staffing. And this is very important because remember, if you're working for a project, you have a dotted line. You have a solid line to your hiring manager, to your manager, I guess the manager who approves your time card and approves your expense report, but then you also have this dotted line to the project manager, right? And if you're part of 5 projects, you literally have 5 dotted line, right? Because you're working with 5 different projects, contributing, 10%, 15%, 20% of your time. So it gets very complicated. So again, you need to have some sort of a system in place so that this can be all tracked. Then finally comes in the system, right? So this is with today's remote work culture, it can be hard to keep in touch with every team member in the project to see what's going on at all the times. So that's why the technology is there, which is great. So deploy the right set of tools for the project team members to collaborate, to interact, to look up information, access knowledge base, create new content in a one centralized place so that everyone can benefit from that, right? Once you have all these blocks in place, you are on your way to more of a projectized organization. Okay. All right, let's continue on here as we wrap up here towards the final thoughts here. Now, based on the research that was done by the Harvard Business Review during the December 21 issue, here's the situation. I want to make sure the three boxes are clearly defined, and I think this is a very interesting data. I want to leave you with this here. So projects have already taken over the operation as the economic engine of our time. Everything around us is project driven, right? I think we already established that. By 2027, close to 88 million people around the world are likely to be working in a project management, and a value of project-oriented economic activity can reach upwards of $20 trillion. Right? I want you to kind of take that in. I think it's some big numbers here. So that's the situation right now. The problem, again, there's a problem here too. The problem is that many leaders still undervalue the projects and project management. Right? I even heard people say that if you want to make sure that nothing gets done, create a project. Right? This is a complete. I'm just shocked by that, but that's what people do say that. So they literally use like a mockery of the word whole project. So as a result, only 35% of the projects undertaken worldwide are successful. Only 35%, despite looking at what's coming up in literally next 5 years. Only 35% of the projects are successful. So if that's the case, we are wasting a colossal amount of time, money, and opportunity. Right? I can also elaborate here and talk more about some of the reasons why these projects fail, right? Because if you say only 35%, so what's the deal? Why are these projects failing? And there's a huge laundry list, right? I mean, you can literally go on and talk through this. I'm going to give you just a handful of them. First one is the lack of resource planning. Right? Companies are starting off the project and they're saying, just get started, we'll do it, right? And that's the case. What you're doing is you are building you're starting the train and you're building the railroad track at the same time. You really can't do that. You really need to spend time looking at the resources and figuring out, do I have this resource available to me until the end of the project, right? How much time can I have this resource for? What other things that are working on? Literally sit down and make sure that you have this resource available. Other things, unclear goals and objectives. Right? I've been on a project so many times, they're going to say, yeah, we're going to get started with the e-commerce platform, e-commerce website. And then when you start asking follow-up questions, no, just get started. Get the ISP, get the domain, and get started, and we'll talk about it. Right? The goal is to sell products online. That's not good enough, right? Because we don't have all the other pieces in between. That's not mapped out. And then the scope creep comes in, and I'll talk about that in a second. So when you don't have a clear goal up front, your project is going to fail, basically, right from the beginning. The other thing also is the inaccurate cost and time estimate. Over and over again, I've seen VPs and CEOs, announce on the yearly kickoff and say, we're going to spend $1 million on this project. Why $1 million? Because it's a round number, right? It could be way off, but they just like to say that. We'll finish this in 3 months and we'll spend $1 million on this one. The project doesn't work that way. You really, where did they get the numbers from? So you are starting off with this top-down, some arbitrary number out there, just throwing it out there, and you're expecting everybody under the organization to rally behind you and then try to deliver that. Now, of course, I think people do, but sometimes it's just not possible. The numbers are either way under or way over, right? Because you're just throwing out round numbers. Communication gaps, big deal, right? In 2022, even today, communications is number one. for the number one reason why projects are failing. And again, it's just one of those things that I thought you knew, right? Again, it's the assumption, right? Or you said, I thought we're gonna do this. I thought we're gonna do this, right? There's no clarity. After the meeting is over, project managers are not sending out project minutes, right? There's no central repository. There is no, what was accomplished during the project. What are the next steps? Those things are missing, right? There's nobody really following through that. Same thing with the stakeholder engagement. You have high-level and executives, project sponsor, they show up on first meeting and then they're disappeared. They're not involved in that. Right? So you have a lack of shareholder engagement. That's a major issue as well. So these are some of the things. Scope creep, I want to finish that up also. Scope creep is something that happens all the time. And again, if that's a new word for you, scope creep is something that when you start a project with a set of understanding as to what you're going to be doing, and during the course of the project, the requirement keeps adding on to the project, right? How many times you work in a company and somebody asks you in the hallway and say, hey, what are you working on? I'm working on a project, I'm creating a website. Oh, great. Can we add this to on top of that one? Oh, can we add this? Can we add this, right? So next thing you know, the word gets around and they know that you're working on a project to create a website. And then suddenly the scope of the website has grown so much that every department needs to do it. And then now pretty much it's not going to happen because now there's way too much work that needs to be done with that limited amount of time with a number of resources. Not going to happen, right? So scope creep is a very real thing, and I'm not saying that change cannot be there. Change is part of life. Change happens every day, and the longer the project duration, the more changes are bound to come. That's okay. However, there should be a methodology to this. There should be a change management process as to what would you incorporate that as the change, and what would you not incorporate that as a change and use that as a separate project later on, right? So that's also a scope creep. That's another piece of it as well. All right, and then finally, the lack of risk planning. I mentioned that as the last one also, right? So again, everybody thinks that nothing's gonna go wrong with our project. Don't spend time, don't spend money on this one here. And if things were to go south, we'll deal with it when we get there, right? So that's the mindset. Let's just start, just start execution. And again, when there's a risk, there's now a major disaster. So these are some of the reasons why projects can fail. And again, I only scratched the surface here. There are many more reasons out there as well. All right, moving on to the last box here. So what does a company needs to do? Right, the way forward. The way forward is the companies need to reinvent their approach to the project management. They really need to understand that projects are the way that they can be competitive. They are they can launch a new product really quickly, right, and try to get into the marketplace and maybe be first on the marketplace and take advantage of the environment. So that's one way to do this. They also need to adopt a project-driven organizational structure, right? Ensure that executives can launch a project, right? Even the mid-level executives can sponsor a project, and the managers are also trained in the modern project management methodology, right? So I think that is also a way to do this one. So allow employees to invent, right? Launch a project, and then really take that to the next level and literally create this environment within the organization where everyone can start thinking in terms of the projects. All right, so with that, I'm gonna just bring up a quick reference that I used for my presentation here. And then with that, I'm gonna bring it to the end here. So covered a lot of ground here. Let me stop here and see if there are any comments, questions, suggestions.
Before we hop into the audience taking some questions, there were some posed a little bit earlier, so I just want to bring those to your attention and get your feedback on those real quick. So one of the questions was, what would be an example of waste in the context of project management? And then one person put in the chat that, just an example, one could be a waste of time. and then a on a project, another could be, you know, a waste of talent. So overstaffing or understaffing in those examples. So do you have another example that you could bring into the fold as well for the folks?
Yeah, so I think when you talk about waste, so let me even give you a bigger context, right? So, and I'm gonna bring it down to even simpler level. So what happens is if I ask you to share with me your to-do list, you probably have 20, 30, 40 to-do list items. However, and I'm sure you want to finish those 30, 40 tasks, today, but you can't because you don't have enough time. You don't have enough resources. You don't have, it's only one person that it's your list. And same thing happens within the organization too. If you look at what I call it, this proverbial whiteboard for a company, they would have a lot of projects listed, right? They want to do so many things, but at the same time, organizations also face problems, and it could be I'm talking Meta or Google or the Apples of the world. They have more projects that they can work on compared to the resources they have available, right? So they really need to be very smart about which projects they work on. They have to work on a project that can bring some real value. They need to pick a project that's going to give them either, maybe it could be a regulatory requirement, it could be competitive advantage, it could be a brand new product that they want to launch, right? So, but they need to pick this very carefully. And if they don't pick the right project, right, what they did is they did something because to satisfy the ego or to copy the competition, they did not gain any market share. Nothing really happened. So in that essence, what happened was they wasted their time. They wasted their time engaging their people, engaging the resources, engaging obviously the money to create something that really didn't produce anything. Right. So that's what organizations end up doing. Sometimes we end up doing that as well, right? I mean, on a personal level, you may spend a half hour doing something that you probably didn't intend to do, and then you say, oh, I wasted a half hour, but that time is already gone. You just wasted the time. Same thing happens here.
Gotcha. And then one other thing, so someone made a comment and a question as well. So don't many projects fail due to the constantly moving target? Time to market is huge for many. By the time you roll out, product or service may be obsolete or ineffective. And just it's interesting that they asked this right before you got into scope creep, and that kind of reminded me of that. So at a particular portion of the time you have scope creep, that can be that moving target a lot of the times.
Yeah, and I think that's why it is. So when you are creating project documentation, when you're getting started with the project, we have the project charter is a document that we create, right? And the beauty of this document is you spell out. It's almost like a contract. You spell out exactly what you're going to do in this project. And to me, I also have a section that actually talks about what this project is not going to accomplish. It's very, very important. I'll give you a quick example. Recently, I was working with a project. I was actually helping somebody. This is last year, Windows 11 rollout. So a company had about 300 computers, and they wanted to upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. It was a free upgrade, so they figured they just contacted this project management company, and I was just helping them with the technical aspect of it. And the project, we literally had to specify that this project only consists of software upgrade of Windows 10 to Windows 11. If any computer does not have enough hardware or does not have enough RAM or does not have enough disk space, that computer will be excluded from the project, right? It's very clear. So you really need to make sure that you clarify this here so you're not leaving anything to chance, and then make sure the other party signs off on the document and project charter. So there's a complete understanding. So, but yeah, and that's what happens when you actually get down into the project. And that's why spending time upfront defining the scope of the project is very, very important.
Nice. That's amazing. That's amazing. And another question that just came in. So how can you help a company move forward toward projectized management? So, maybe not taking a lot of projects on, but they want to move into that arena and really hone in on the methodology. How can one, bring that conversation forth and push the organization in that way?
Yeah, great point. And I think I'm gonna go back here. I think this kind of goes back to the slide right here. The conversation has to be, first of all, this conversation has to happen at the very top of the organization. right? So company, the executive level, the board, they need to figure out. I mean, you look at Apple again. I can't think about this Apple or even Meta, right? Google. What are they doing? They're always working on these different projects. Either they are rolling out new systems, but everything they do is project based, and they keep on sending out new updates on your phone. Your app is getting refreshed every 15, 20 days. What is that? They're pushing out a small updates. That's all project driven work. They're sending out feature here, feature there, enhancements here, bug fixes here. So they're doing this part. So the point is, this has to happen. The conversation has to happen at the top. The organization culture has to change, right? You need to give your employees a freedom or ability or even a structure where they can be working on 4 or 5 different projects at the same time and still maintain the accountability to all those projects. Right, a lot of companies, what happens is they work on one project and that's pretty much it. All the time is dedicated to that project. So skill set has to be, the companies have, the employees has to be combed. You have to identify the skill levels that you have, so that when the right project comes in, you can assign the right people with the right skills on those projects. The structure has to be in such a way that is fluid, it's agile, and it's scalable, right? So if somebody were to leave or somebody was to come in, they can easily, include individuals within the organization and be part of that project as quickly as possible and start becoming a contributing member of the team. So I think the environment, the culture, and the strategic direction has to be changed. So again, I hate to use those terms, but again, literally is one of those intangible thing that has to change at the very top before we can see the impact of this projectized organization down to the lower level.
Gotcha. And is there any other questions before we move into the UAGC presentation part of it? Okay, well, we may have a little bit of time left afterwards, but we're going to move into the UAGC presentation really quickly and cover that, and then we'll have a little bit more time left after for some more questions as well if they're out there. So if you want to stop your screen share, and then I'll just take over on that and pull this presentation up. And if you're interested in learning more about UAGC, our education benefits, or becoming a partner, you can scan the code on the screen, or you can click on the link that I'm going to throw in the chat shortly. And if you requested more information about attending UAGC when you register for today's session, nothing else more that you need to do. One of our advisors will be following up with you very soon. And that's the end of the UAGC portion. So I'm just going to leave this up on the screen in case anyone else wants to scan, and then I will tackle a couple other questions that I believe we've received over the course of the presentation. So curious about software methodology tools for project management. Do all these methods you summarized have corresponding tools to guide the project management?
Yes, they do. They all have tools for example, as I mentioned to you, if you're using Kanban, you can use something like Trello or ClickUp, Microsoft Planner. If you're using just a traditional waterfall, you can use Microsoft Project, right? So the tools are out there. And likewise, for XP, you can use the tools that are out there. Yeah, so there are many tools available. And again, those are specialized for them as well, right? So you can use literally Excel if you wanted to, and then create a project plan on your own if you wanted to. But there are many tools available, both free and paid for. Just a simple Google search will locate, you can identify which of those are. And if you have any specific ones, you can just let us know and we'll be happy to get back to you.
All right, leave that one. And then this last question is actually for me with PhD options and tuition savings are there. So I would encourage you to look at the partnership page and check out your company's landing page, which would have some information on their particular benefits. And then as far as the PhD programs, let me throw the link in the chat for folks to check out our degree programs. And if you go to uagc.edu, you can click on the degrees and check out some of the options that we have there as well. Any other questions out there for myself or Dr. Raj? All right, people just out there singing your praises. So just want to give another thank you and appreciate you for coming through and providing some knowledge for everyone. I think this is some great information for folks to take back to their organizations, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you.